Ebola in Sierra Leone started in the month of May, and it has been able to go all over the country because of a number of factors. One of them has to do with denial. When it all started, people didn't believe that there was a disease called Ebola, and people had to take it for granted. And after the denial phase, we had the politicians who tried to politicize it. You know, our country seemed to be divided between two main political parties, the All People's Congress and the Sierra Leone People's Party. And these two major parties in our country seem to be divided on regional lines. The ruling party, which is the APC, seemed to be in charge of the western area, which is the capital city, and the northern province of the country. And you have the opposition largely been having support from the south and the eastern region. And Ebola happens to come from the eastern region of the country. So the opposition took that for granted and wanted their people not to believe that there was Ebola, but rather they said it was the ruling party that wants to minimize the population in the east and southern region, so that when we go to elections in 2018, their population would be lower than that of the ruling party. And therefore, they thought that the people should not believe in Ebola. So they politicized the whole aspect of Ebola. But then the third factor that I believe was responsible for the escalation of Ebola all over the country is what I call lawlessness and indiscipline on the part of the Sierra Leoneans, because the government had a lot of rules that they put in place that people should stay where they are, stop moving from one place to the other. But many people didn't believe in that. They were lawless. They could not listen to what the government was saying. And of course, we had a fourth factor, which was the fact that many people were afraid of going to the hospital. I mean, if you're a Christian and you have problems of sin, you run to the church. If you're a child, you're on the street and you have difficulties, you run to your home. And if somebody is sick, the best place you have to go is the hospital. But then people had this misconception that the moment you go to the hospital, you won't come back when you are named to be an Ebola patient. And therefore, many people were afraid of the hospital. They had no confidence in the health service providers. And therefore, when they got sick, they stayed home and they were able to infect their loved ones. And that was how the disease spread over. It's very scary. It is all over the country. But we have the opinion that that is not all. God is still God. He is living and is in position to ensure that Ebola is eradicated out of the country. The government has called on the church to go to the Lord in prayer because they believe we need divine intervention, because no amount of money, no amount of medical facilities will be able to eradicate Ebola in our country. And the churches have positively responded to the call of the president by holding national prayers, sessions of national confession and request to the Lord for an intervention into this. One of the weeks in September, we had to make sure that we embark on prayer and fasting. And at the end of that fasting on Sunday evening, at 6 o'clock in the evening, we asked people to come out and shout the name of Jesus. It will interest you to know that even Muslims came out in their large numbers shouting the name of Jesus because they believe Jesus had the authority to eradicate Ebola in our country. Let me also use this opportunity to thank the North American churches, including Heritage Wesleyan Church, for your contribution to Global Partners and World Hope International in helping to train our health workers in Kamakwi in their preparedness to handle Ebola. That contribution for Sierra Leone, Liberia was very much appreciated and went a very good way. I only want to say, let us don't relent. Continue supporting Liberia and Sierra Leone, and above all, let's be with the Lord in prayer for the eradication of Ebola in West Africa. It was Heritage that first loved the Wesleyan Church. I could remember when we came out of the war, the country was devastated and everything seemed to have gone. And it was Heritage that first supported the conduction of our first pastoral conference in Sierra Leone. They gave us their moral and financial support. And in that conference, they were able to reassure our pastors that we were not alone in the battle, that we had brothers and sisters on the other side who stood behind us and they supported us. It was Heritage that helped to refurbish the battered libraries of our pastors when they came from the war. by providing them with NIV study Bibles with commentaries, which they use in their libraries to be able to study and be able to preach the Word of God. And that also helped to expose us to tap from the pastoral experience of John and Patty Bray because of their leadership in Heritage. I also believe it was also fulfilling for Heritage because for them, it was like they were responding to God's call to help rescue the perishing. And that has been a fulfilling thing to them. When the missionaries pulled out of Sierra Leone, the church really went down. But then we had an opportunity of getting control over the church, and the church really became autonomous on its own right. But then with the war, we were completely broken down, we were completely shattered, and lost all of the features that we had. But then that was the time that Heritage came in and was able to rescue us, was able to revive and rekindle our spirit, especially that of our front guards, whom I call the pastors, who are responsible for the running of the church. I think that intervention and love that was demonstrated by Heritage for the Wesleyan Church in Sierra Leone makes us value the relationship, for which we are very grateful. Yeah, that is what we got from the United Nations. The Sierra Leone is like the second from bottom of being the poorest country in the world. And we had no reason to reject and deny that fact, because in the midst of all of the mineral resources we have in that country, we have come to realize that the nation is not benefiting anything from it. But as a church, we have tried in the poverty alleviation of our people to contribute in a number of ways. We have a department called the Social Services Department, formerly known as the Wesleyan Development and Relief Agencies. What we do, we provide farm input for our community people. We provide microcredit facilities for them in the past so that they can be able to improve on their livelihood. We employ our pastors. We employ teachers in our 110 elementary schools and 16 high schools. We also help in providing scholarship for people who want to study in the field of medical or even in the schools. So I am of the opinion that those contributions that we make by way of employment, by way of educating our people, our young people in the church, we are contributing in the poverty alleviation and also meeting the Millennium Development Goal that the UN have set for us. As a church, that is what we are doing at the moment, and we think we're creating an impact in Sierra Leone. That is a very interesting question. Of course, the Wesleyan pastor in a typical Sierra Leonean village is first and foremost the pastor. He's not only the pastor, sometimes he is the Sunday school teacher, sometimes he is the teacher in the school in that village, because he happens to be the most educated person in that village. The pastor is the counselor of the village. In that village, the pastor is both a father and a parent if he has children. But apart from that, in the past, we have had pastors becoming quack doctors. Quack doctors in the sense that they are not trained medical persons, but because it is difficult for them to survive, they will want to make themselves like medical people. They will embark on buying drugs, and they go around the villages and giving injection to people so as to be able to make a living. The fact of the matter is, when you're a pastor in the rural village in Sierra Leone, you are in a situation wherein you cannot even raise a salary for you. If the offering, the collections in the Sunday morning are favorable, then the pastor's monthly salary is a little above $4 per month. He has a wife, he has children to educate, he has to feed himself. So therefore, many pastors in the rural areas get themselves involved in those kind of activities in the past. But we want to thank God that today our pastors are committed to what they've been called to do. So to answer your question, the pastor in a rural setting in Sierra Leone is a pastor, is a community worker, is a Sunday school teacher, is a teacher of the community, is the counselor of the community, and is a father and a parent when he serves in the rural areas in Sierra Leone. The Wesleyan Church in Sierra Leone is called to minister to the whole man, the whole gospel to the whole man. We want to ensure that we meet not only the spiritual needs of our people, but we are given the mandate to meet the physical need of our people. The Wesleyan Church wants to ensure that we minister to the people of Sierra Leone and beyond Sierra Leone. We want to do this through evangelism, discipleship, church building, um, um, education, which is through the schools, and also by providing healthcare, quality healthcare services for the people in Sierra Leone. That is our goal and that is our mission, and we want to ensure that we succeed in those things. Indeed, Sierra Leone has gone through a very difficult history. 24 years ago, we had a very brutal war, a war that saw many houses being burnt down, people's limbs and arms were being chopped off, a war that took the life of over 50,000 people in the country, a war that devastated churches, homes were shattered, a war that made many Sierra Leoneans become refugees in foreign lands. But as we are back in the country, 24 years ago, today we have what we call Ebola in our country. And in the place of Ebola, we have tried as a church to embark on an extensive sensitization among our members and our pastors for the protection, prevention, and eradication of Ebola in our country. We have gone around all of the 6 administrative districts of our country to educate our pastors on Ebola. Not only that, we have not been able to ensure that at every Wesleyan church in the country, they have veronical buckets that have chlorines in it, that people who come to the church, there is a steward that stands at the door to ensure that everyone wash their hands with chlorine or soap and water before they get into the church services. And because of the high population of people in the services today, there is a space between the sitting accommodation of our people. And apart from that, we've also added evening services to our morning services so that people who are not able to go to church in the morning hours, they can avail themselves in the evening. In the field of poverty alleviation, we have tried, like I earlier mentioned, to ensure that we're able to provide farm tools for our people, to ensure that they are able to involve in self-reliance activities that is to be given to them as a support from the church. These are things we have done in the past. At the moment, we are having difficulties because we don't have the resources. If we have the resources, we want to provide farm tools to our people. Majority of our church members are farmers. They do subsistence farming. They need farm tools. They need farm input, like rice that they could plant, and potato vines that they could plant. They're on the market for sale. The church can have those and have them distributed to our people to be able to serve them. In the field of child trafficking is an issue that we're advocating against very seriously, and we are in partnership with World Hope International in Sierra Leone. We have assigned one of our pastors on secondment to World Hope International in the field of child trafficking, and he's doing a tremendous job doing sensitization among our people, and we value it and we think it is a human trade and we cannot allow it to happen. In the area of female genital mutilation, we have done an extensive survey over the years. And we have also had other people like UNICEF and other non-governmental organizations that have done surveys on female genital mutilation. We have been able to study the causes. We have been able to study the economic values of it. We have been able to study what are the effects of it on the younger people. So what we want to do at this moment, we want to analyze and study those literatures as a church so that we can come up with a solution as to how we've been able to handle it. We are currently in partnership with the International Women's Desk of Global Partners. They have engaged us and they've given us support, and we are going to target our school population. We have about 110 elementary schools and 16 high schools. Our student population is over 29,000 students in our schools all over the country. We want to engage the younger people in our schools so that they can be the agents of change that will go back to their communities and let them understand the effect of female genital mutilation in the community that they find themselves. We also, as a church, we want to produce Sunday school materials on female genital mutilation, child trafficking, so that we can use that in our Sunday school lessons all over the country by our pastors and Sunday school teachers to be able to teach our people. So that is the role we are playing in order to be able to contribute to the issues that are against the human treatment of man and every issue that are not good for the human being that we consider in our human rights activities in the country. Well, we're doing a number of activities, and We have a number of projects that will help us accomplish our vision of wanting to meet the needs of our people, both physical and spiritual. The Wesleyan Church happens to be the first mission field of the North American mission, and we think we have a role to play. Currently, we have a number of projects, and one of them has to do with church building projects. We have this wonderful instrument called the Jesus Film, which is the modern tool for evangelism. I am a product of that instrument. I come from a Muslim background, a converted Muslim, and I went to look at the Jesus Film. It was during that Jesus Film that I came to know the Lord and turned my back away from Islam, and today I am a leader of the church, the Wesleyan Church in Sierra Leone. And that instrument has continued gaining a lot of momentum with the Wesleyan Church in Sierra Leone. We do a lot of campaigning with the Jesus Film. We establish a lot of congregations, but because we do not have money readily available in our hands to put up structures for our people in the villages, some of those congregations end up in the hands of the Catholics, who will come and just put up structures for them. We have come to realize that with $4,500, we can build a church in the village community for the people to conveniently be able to worship. How can this happen? The people are ready to provide the local materials, the sticks and the bush. They're ready to provide the dirt. All that you need to you to be able to buy for them the imported items like the corrugated sheets, help them with balls, some nails, and cement to pave their buildings. They have a perfect place to go in there for $4,500. We also have a very strong memory of heritage, in that in addition to the pastors' conference, which was initiated by them, in addition to the refurbishing of the libraries of our pastors, they also met the physical need of the front guards of the church, who are the pastors, by providing them rice. And this has been an annual program. Pastors who serve in the rural areas have difficulties of feeding themselves, as earlier mentioned, but then Heritage has been able every year to provide us money within the months of July and August to provide rice for our pastors. With a bag of rice, which is about $50 per bag, we are able to feed a family of 5 for 1 month, a pastor with a family of 5. And that has been a very wonderful contribution, and is a project that we want to see continue in the Wesleyan Church of Sierra Leone. We have also come to realize that we need to pay emphasis on higher theological education. There is no way we can gather cabbage and put it on people's head and say, we've equipped you for ministry. Ministry is a tough job. You must be prepared for it before you get into it. And if we want the pastors to be effective in their work, we really need to get them trained. Jesus Christ himself spent 3 years with those 12 guys they call his disciples on what I refer to as a mobile Bible college, training them, teaching them. And when he was able to leave this world, today the gospel has been all over the world. So I am sure that we need to put emphasis on training our pastors. For $1,700, you can train one Wesleyan pastor in the rural area in theological education with a bachelor's degree for 1 year. And that bachelor's degrees go for about 4 years. Well, with $1,700 per year, you can be able to pay the tuition, you can be able to provide the boarding, you can be able to provide books for a Wesleyan pastor to study in Sierra Leone without moving out of his country to acquire a bachelor's degree to do the work of the ministry. We also have a project of this year, we want to ensure that we bring our pastors and their spouses together. This is a program we've thought about for over the years, over 10 years ago. 6 months ago, when the pastors' wives had their pastor's wife retreat, in unison, they all came to me and said, we want an opportunity to bring our husbands together with us so that we can discuss our respective roles in the ministry. And apart from that, we now have Ebola. And one of the problems of Ebola, we have come to realize, is a sanitary problem. Proper hygiene and sanitation is a solution to the spreading of Ebola. And that is very lacking among the African population in our country. So we have the opinion that at the end of Ebola, hopefully in May, when we bring these pastors and their wives together, we'll use that forum and bring in medical people who can teach them basic hygienes so that when they go back to their communities, as the community leaders, as the counselors of the community, as the teachers in the community, they will be able to affect the community people on how they can properly take care of their hygienes. In this project, we have got no less a person but the Reverend Dr. Joan Lyon the General Superintendent of the Wesleyan Church of Sierra Leone, of the Wesleyan Church of North America, has consented to be the main speaker in that pastors' conference. That project is going to cost like $312 per couple for 1 week to be in that conference, which will cover their accommodation and food if they are to come to that conference. And we're having about 205 pastoral couples that we have identified. There's about 410 people who are going to be at that conference. These are the areas. So we want to see Heritage and the North American Church collaborating with the Wesleyan Church in this project that I have mentioned, by either providing a monthly support for any of the projects I have just mentioned. As an individual person in the congregation can pledge to donate whatever you want to donate on a monthly basis to the Wesleyan Church to support any of the project. And as small groups, the women's group, the youth group, the men's fellowship, and as a church, you can also think about what kind of project you want to support the Wesleyan Church. But apart from all of this thing that I've mentioned, we don't only need it, we also need your prayers so that God will continue to put his blessing on our programs. He'll continue to be in the midst of what we are doing. But then thirdly, we also need manpower. The Bible says the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. We are looking forward to doctors in North America who can come over and serve in a hospital. We are looking over for nurses. We want retired teachers or even teachers who are now serving to come over to Sierra Leone and mentor our teacher folk, our head teachers, our principals, the basic principles of education. We need people who can form themselves into work teams and come over to Sierra Leone and help us republish or build some of the structures that we want to put in place. With the pastors' conference and the spouses that I've just mentioned, we are looking for speakers in North America who will be willing to be part of that conference, come in and teach and be part of the program that we are doing. So these are the areas we are looking forward to people in North America, particularly in Heritage. I will say we want to encourage them to continue with us. We look at Heritage as our main partners, who have been our main benefactor, who have helped to revive and make the Wesleyan Church of Sierra Leone what it is today. So I've come to make this appeal to them that we should build on this relationship and allow it to see where the Lord wants us to lead it.